We usually think of evolution as this majestic, perfectly calculating force, optimizing life to thrive in its environment. But if you actually look at the biological record, it operates a lot more like a chaotic, vindictive game designer throwing random parameters at a wall. Look back 63 million years ago. A massive space rock hits Earth, and the ruling giants of the planet are entirely wiped out. Yet somehow, a tiny rat-sized bug-eater called a myicid survived the apocalypse. And we should be pretty happy about that, since humans are direct descendants of this little survivor. But according to the fossil record, evolution was less than thrilled that this creature bypassed the extinction event. If humans are the lucky branch of this evolutionary tree, it begs the question, what kind of absurd, terrifying pranks did biology pull on the other branches it decided to experiment on out of spite? Let's start with the amphibians. Early primitive fish decided they wanted to leave the water. It took a grueling 100 million year effort to develop limbs strong enough to fight gravity and lungs capable of breathing open air. They finally make it onto land, and about 50 million years ago, evolution pulls the rug out. It decides frogs have too many options, so it confiscates their functional lungs and replaces them with a tiny, useless lung-like organ, trapping them near the water once again. The subsequent updates only got weirder. Afrobatrachians were handed shovel-shaped noses and told to hide underground. Rain frogs got it worse. They were forced to dig their holes backwards using their butts. Then, around 23 million years ago, biology seemingly tried to kill off a batch of frogs entirely by banishing them to the deserts of Namibia. This is a place with almost zero rainfall, meaning tadpoles wouldn't have the water they needed to survive. But the frogs found a loophole. They bypassed the water-dependent tadpole phase entirely and started laying eggs that hatched directly into froglets. The cycle continued, despite the sabotage. You see a similar pattern with insects. Ants are highly intelligent creatures with complex societies, yet they get treated horribly by their own biology. For instance, a South Asian carpenter ant is burdened with an emergency defense mechanism that causes them to literally explode when enemies are near. Other species fare just as poorly. The flathead ant was biologically demoted to act as a literal door, plugging the colony hole with its head. And the Sahara ant is forced into record-breaking sprinting speeds just to survive running across boiling sands. This diagram starts with the silhouette of a single Messer ibericus female. She represents the ultimate broken rule of biology because she doesn't just give birth to her own kind. As the timeline branches into two, she gives birth to her own species, plus an entirely different species of ant. Genetically speaking, this is the equivalent of a human giving birth to a chimpanzee. Logic is completely thrown out the window. These examples show a clear pattern. Adapting successfully doesn't earn an animal a break. It often forces them into humiliating or biologically impossible scenarios. Nowhere is this clearer than in aesthetic arms races. Long ago, the ancestors of the elk were peacefully roaming open alpine forests and grasslands. Then, biology intervened. Females were hardwired to only attract to massive antlers. To keep up, the males were forced to grow absurd 13-foot headgear just to find a mate. This created a fatal environmental trap. The Ice Age ended, the Earth warmed up, and those open grasslands quickly morphed into a dense, chaotic jungle maze. You can imagine trying to navigate a thick jungle with 13 feet of bone strapped to your head. The antlers got hopelessly tangled in vines, turning the giant deer into sitting ducks for predators. By 10,000 years ago, they were driven to extinction, and evolution refused to issue a bug fix. Even today, modern deer with branched antlers will regularly get them permanently locked together during mating fights, leading both animals to starve. Rather than optimizing for survival, the evolutionary process will stubbornly maintain a destructive feature, trapping a species in a deadly biological glitch. Sometimes the results are just wildly confused. Around 63 million years ago, biology mashed together squirrel skulls, ever-growing hamster teeth, and bat echolocation, all onto the body of a lemur. To complete this Frankenstein experiment, it outfitted the creature with a grotesque, elongated middle finger. And then, as if disgusted by its own creation, evolution seemingly abandoned the ii without any further updates. Left to its own devices, the ii repurposed the curse. It uses that long finger to rapidly tap on trees to find bugs, and quite awkwardly uses it to pick its nose all the way down to its throat. And the taxonomy makes just as little sense. Remember the myosads that survived the asteroid? They eventually branched into dogs and cats. Yet, if you look at how they are grouped, evolution officially classifies hyenas as cats, not dogs. The feline branch then adapted to harsh, dry lands. Their punishment for this success? They were saddled with hypersensitive dry fur that caused them to permanently hate water. Then comes the ultimate contradiction. After making them despise water, biology forces a group of these felines straight back into the rivers to hunt. It mutilated their tails, webbed their feet, and created the fishing cat. It acts like a bored child smashing action figures together, actively contradicting its own survival updates just to see who makes it out alive. This web of evolutionary branches shows the exploded ants, the extinct giant deer, and the aquatic desert cats. It lays out a system that makes exactly zero logical sense. But that reveals the true marvel of the natural world. There is no grand, perfect design guiding everything. Life survives purely through its own stubborn resilience, keeping the cycle going no matter how badly it gets sabotaged along the way. Which brings us back to humanity. We descended from that same tiny, rat-sized myocid that survived the apocalypse. And after millions of years of chaotic biological updates, our only truly unique feature in the entire animal kingdom is that we have a chin. Why did evolution choose this path? That remains entirely unknowable. The only thing I surely know is, as always, I love you guys.